The year was 1999, and a historical event was about to take place, the literal turn of a century. The end of the 20th century was rapidly approaching, and people were in terror. They were in terror that the end of the world was near, with many theories ranging from banking collapse all the way to nuclear war. When the clock struck midnight and the ball fell, the year 2000 was born, and many heaved a sigh of relief as they were still alive. But little did they know that something was approaching, and it was approaching faster and faster than anything has ever gone before. This is the Y2K. Today I am presenting to all of you one of the fastest motorcycles in all of history, a bike within its own class, a fire-breathing behemoth that can go faster, pull harder, and scare the life out of your body quicker than anything else out there. A bike powered with the heart of a jet turbine engine that makes 320 horsepower and 425 foot-pound of torque. This bike is a mythical beast, a unicorn, a widowmaker. This bike is the Y2K. The Y2K was developed by a company called MTT, which stands for Marine Turbine Technology. Located in southern Louisiana, MTT is a design, engineering, and manufacturing company who specialize in the packaging of gas turbine engines for unique industrial applications. All MTT products involve a gas turbine engine that generates mechanical energy to drive the turbine's output shaft. The MTT shop floor consists of turbine engine refurbishing, dyno testing, package fabrication, and CAD engineering. So in conclusion, MTT isn't really a motorcycle company. They just specialize in jet turbine technology and love to stick their jet turbines into just about anything they can get their hands on. They've stuck their turbine engines into boats, planes, motorcycles, generators, and cars. Now, they may not be a motorcycle company, but they did make the Y2K motorcycle. The bike is absolutely ludicrous. The highest ever recorded top speed was 227 miles per hour, but theoretically this speed could be even higher. Even today, only a handful of bikes can even touch the Y2K, and even they certainly don't give off quite the reaction that the jet-powered Y2K does. The speed wars, top horsepower numbers, and sheer amounts of absolute ridiculousness of modern superbikes being equipped with MotoGP technology, superchargers, higher displacement, and yet the whole room still goes dead quiet when you mention the Y2K, a motorcycle which was built 20 years ago. And of course, let's start talking about the elephant in the room, and that is the engine. The engine is a Rolls-Royce 250 C18 turboshaft engine. And according to my research, there used to be a company called Allison, which made the jet engine known as the Allison Model 250, which was developed in the early 1960s. Then in 1995, Rolls-Royce acquired Allison and changed the name from the Allison Model 250 to the Rolls-Royce M250. Okay, so they shoved a 1960s jet turbine engine into a large number of helicopters and other small aircraft. And then in 2000, they stuck this 40-year-old developed engine into a motorcycle. So the Rolls-Royce M250 engine has 7 axial compressor stages mounted on the HP shaft to supercharge a relatively low pressure ratio centrifugal compressor. Okay, I get it. I didn't understand a single word I just said there, and I'm sure most of you don't either. All you need to know is that this thing spins up to around 52,000 RPM and makes 425 foot-pound of torque. The Y2K was produced from 2000 to 2005, although I'm seeing reports it was really 01. I guess 01's technically the first model year, even though some of them were released in 2000. Anyway, when it was brand new, it cost $175,000. And in year 2000, that's about $255,000 in today's money. The Y2K is a twin-beam aluminum frame. Along with that, the Y2K uses a 2-speed semi-automatic transmission, and it is chain-driven, which actually surprised me quite a bit. Of course, any 6-figured motorcycle has to have Öhlins and Brembo, and the Y2K of course does. It has Öhlins 55mm inverted front forks and an adjustable Öhlins monoshock for the rear. As for the brakes, the Y2K uses 4-piston Brembo calipers on 320mm dual rotors on the front and 320mm rotor with a 4-piston Brembo brake caliper for the rear. The tires are fairly normal with a 120 in the front and a 200 in the rear, and the dry weight of this bike is about 460 pounds. Being a jet turbine engine, you cannot just stick premium gas into it, you have to use jet fuel. Well, not actually. The Y2K's jet engine could technically run off of diesel, kerosene, or biofuel, which actually makes the Y2K not seem quite as ridiculous since you can just go to a regular gas station and fill up its 9-gallon fuel tank with diesel and be on your way. In fact, Christian Trevert, the lead designer and project manager of the Y2K, said, "The Y2K can use anything from normal pump gas to tequila or even Chanel perfume, but the diesel fuel runs the most efficiently and makes the most power, so that's what you want to use." Now, I'm not trying to say that the Y2K is actually practical. All I'm trying to say is that the Y2K is not as unrealistic to ride around on as you might think. The seat height is 33 inches high, and the bike weighs about 460 pounds dry. That's the exact same dry weight as my VFR 800, and only a half-inch taller seat height than my RC51. I've obviously never ridden the Y2K, but I've spoken to people who've ridden jet turbine motorcycles before, and they told me that the jet motorcycles are dead smooth, almost in an eerie way, which is very befitting for this motorcycle. There's absolutely no vibrations, and the bike feels so effortless when you're riding it down the road. The Y2K is starting to sound even more justifiable when you break it down, although I couldn't even imagine the insurance nightmare on one of these bikes. Although if you are someone who could afford the price tag on one of these bikes, then I'm sure the insurance bill is something you're not concerned with. And one of the coolest and most interesting things about the Y2K is the fact that it doesn't even have mirrors, but instead has a screen in the cockpit which is linked to a rear-facing camera instead. Now I want to jump to the looks for a minute and just talk about the design. I actually think it looks really cool. I mean, it looks alien, it looks futuristic, it looks something that it looks like something you've never seen before. I mean, of course you got the giant exhaust underneath, which you see that and you know right away you're looking at something different. The tail section just reminds you of a drag bike look, and of course you can see that giant fuel tank right there in the middle. There's no crazy graphics or designs or unnecessary cuts and slits and holes. It's just plain smooth on the side. But anyway, I want to take a moment to dial back to the performance of this bike because we really didn't get a chance to put any of these numbers into real perspective. An independent tester recorded the Y2K went from 0 to 227 miles per hour in 15 seconds. And MTT claims that the bike is capable of 250 miles per hour, and I bet that's true. It's able to do the quarter-mile time in 9.8 seconds, so it's extremely fast and very capable motorcycle. Now, of course, it's not all great. The bottom-end power of the Y2K isn't all that impressive, mostly because of the ridiculously tall gearing coming from its 2-speed transmission. It's honestly probably a good thing when you think about it. And when it comes to cornering, it's not that great there either. It's not so much the weight of the bike, even though it is fairly heavy, but more or less the length of the wheelbase. The Y2K makes you work to corner it, so it doesn't really feel like a sport bike handling like you would get from an R1 or a Fireblade. I believe the handling would be more in line with something like the Hayabusa or something to that effect. But it still has Öhlins suspension and it handles just fine. It's not dangerous or scary, it just wouldn't make a great track bike. As for the brakes, they are extremely powerful. One of the best braking setups, especially during the time this motorcycle was created. The brakes were so powerful for two reasons. The first one's fairly obvious because the bike's capable of 250 miles per hour, so you need massive brakes. But another reason is that a turbine engine doesn't engine brake the same way a normal engine does. So you need to use your brakes to slow down because backing off the throttle alone is not enough to slow this bike down like it is with other motorcycles. Now, I know the Y2K is expensive, but there is one major benefit to buying one of these, and that was that the engine comes with a lifetime warranty for the original owner. As Ted McClanter put it, anyone who blows up one of these and lives deserves a new engine. And guess what? Nobody has ever had to take MTT up on their warranty. As you know, jet engines are actually very reliable, so I guess it's an easy promise for MTT to make to its customers. Now all of this is insane. A jet-powered motorcycle which makes 320 horsepower and 450 foot-pound of torque, which is capable of up to 250 miles per hour. However, there actually is something more insane than that. In 2006, MTT decided that the Y2K was lacking something, and apparently they thought it was horsepower and torque. So they chucked out the old, underpowered Model 250 C18 turbine engine and put in an Allison 250 C20B engine. This new engine makes 420 horsepower and 500 foot-pound of torque. And MTT can confirm that the Street Fighter is able to reach 250 miles per hour. Then again in 2015, MTT released two new models. The first one was a trike with the same 420 horsepower motor, and then the second one was the 420RR. Now the 420RR has all the standard features of the previous versions of the Y2K, but with a larger swing arm, a Pirelli Diablo 240 rear tire, increased fuel capacity, and an enhanced cooling system. The bodywork is all new and looks much more modern. MTT also has the 420RR representing the latest in engineering technology. The bike features carbon fiber fairings, a tubular aluminum frame containing the bike's transmission fluids and a reserve tank, a rear-mounted camera with LCD color display, smart start computerized ignition, and more. MTT is constantly creating product improvements with each new bike built, a testament to a company that stands behind its product. I love what MTT has done. They took an idea that seemed so impossible and made it into a reality. Even though this is something most of us will never have the opportunity to own or even ride, the idea that this thing is still out there roaming the streets and the story behind this insane motorcycle is something we can all enjoy. Thank you MTT for creating something so unique and interesting, and thank you all for watching this video. It's been something I've been wanting to make for years, but it just felt right to release it on the 20th anniversary of the Y2K. Thank you, and I hope you all have an amazing 2020.